Even with our technical advancements and unwavering will to advance, humans are still completely dependent on nature. Human endeavor is always in harmony with nature and has its limitations. For example, we cannot develop a plant entirely apart from its natural growth. Although we can direct and control it, the world controls itself, according to Lao Tzu, the Tao teaching's purported author. It doesn't require our help. Nothing will remain undone when you reach non-action, as Lao Tzu stated. This notion is similar to the fundamental comprehension of the contradictory notion of Wu Wei. Nevertheless, we soon find that there isn't a single definitive definition of Wu Wei when we search for one. Wu Wei can be translated as non-action, doing nothing, actionless action, or effortless action, according to different interpreters. We learn that Taoism provides, if you will, a number of levels at which Wu Wei can improve our interaction with the outside world, and how the age-old practice of letting things happen can really enhance our behavior and produce better results, rather than just turning us into obliging, mindless spectators. This video is a modest attempt to convey the breadth of this philosophical concept in an understandable and useful way. Grappling with Mother Nature. The most widely accepted interpretation of Wu Wei is probably that we should physically align our activities with nature, refrain from forcing anything, and act only when it is appropriate. According to Lao Tzu, using force inevitably results in hidden problems. He seems to be referring to forcing the flow of nature rather than the actual use of force. When he uses the word force, nature follows its own path. It never stops operating in the background. It is the source of all human existence, and is constantly creating and regenerating what Taoists refer to as the 10,000 things, or everything that exists below the surface of the earth and beyond. The value of conscious human effort is prioritized above everything else in today's civilization, despite the universe's vast capabilities. We want to always be busy for the sake of being busy, therefore we reward effort regardless of its real usefulness. We push pebbles uphill solely for the sake of pushing. Like contemporary Sisyphuses. It is one thing to make an attempt, it is quite another to make an intelligent effort. While there are moments when action and hard labor are acceptable, these are not always the case. The cards you are dealt, the game's rhythm, and whether or not it's your turn all play a role. Going against the direction of the game is known as acting out of turn. Thus, we frequently learn that forcing things eventually results in disaster, and that trying to push our luck beyond what nature would allow backfires. However, when we don't push or step in, things usually work out on their own. Things happen naturally when you allow them. For example, the inexperienced farmer only needed to be patient and let his crops alone. Nature would take care of the rest. However, the farmer needs to roll up his sleeves when it is time to harvest. Lao Tzu said, "The Tao never acts with force, yet there is nothing that it cannot do." Everything would go easily if we would just follow the natural order. The farmer's job is to plant the seeds, let the seeds grow into crops, and then, when the crops are ready, harvest them. This is the ideal functioning of nature. According to Lao Tzu, the universe is self-governing and cannot be subject to outside authority. It's completely unmanageable. Any attempt to manage it is doomed to failure. Furthermore, regardless of how much people applaud us for taking part in such a valiant undertaking, battling against nature for the rest of our life is a hopeless venture. We would be better off accepting things as they are and navigating through them like water flowing through a rocky surface towards the ocean. than wasting our life energy attempting to control, rule, and alter the natural path of things. I quote, "Some are meant to lead, and others are meant to follow. Some must always strain, and others have an easy time. Some are naturally big and strong, and others will always be small. Some will be protected and nurtured, and others will meet with destruction. The master accepts things as they are, and out of compassion avoids extravagance, excess, and the extremes." Acting simply to act. The significance of Wu Wei becomes even more fascinating when we go deeper into it. Let's assume that effortless action is the best way to define it. While the common denominator remains constant, letting things happen, it indicates being active and on the go, as opposed to the traditional translations, which suggest non-action and doing nothing. We may say that when we act effortlessly, we're going rather than doing. We go out on a river stream without thinking about where it will lead. We're venturing into unknown waters, but we're not going to be deterred by the vast unknown. Swimming with the current rather than against it allows us to move smoothly and without glitches or stammers. It takes work to swim against the current and to hang on to a rock. Problems occur when we try to force things. Going on a date is one example. The person you are going to meet is simply interested in getting to know you as you currently exist. However, a lot of people overthink, overanalyze, and practice their speeches, and so the jitters start to show. Individuals appear staged, overcompensate, and are dishonest. Why is it the case? Most likely as a result of our excessive attention on the outcome. Zhuangzi discusses how if we become attached to a prospect, it might affect our behavior and emotional states. When it comes to dates, the majority of us want the other person to like us, and for the date to be successful. There is therefore pressure, there is a prize to be gained, and we experience misery if we don't succeed. As a result, what may have been an enjoyable evening turns into a demanding, tense experience requiring extensive pre-planning and introspective thinking. No matter how much thought and preparation we put into it, we are obstructing the universe's natural flow because we are standing in its path. However, picture yourself showing up for a date completely unprepared and unaware of it. You haven't had time to overthink, so you're responding authentically, impulsively, and in the present right now. All that's left is the really you, present and fully engaged in the moment, because there has been no time for strategizing, organizing, or evaluating. And the majority of people adore that. Therefore, we can act more naturally and responsibly when we are able to let go of the outcome and focus only on the act itself. The Unsculpted Stone. We reach the ego and emptiness if we delve any more. Our knowledge and culture have been shaped by past events, social conditioning, and ideas, which have made us into well-rounded, contextually appropriate individuals. This setting could be a nation, a religious community, or a line of work. This is often viewed as positive. There is a drawback, though, and the ego is the cause of this drawback. Our perception of the world's reality is frequently distorted by the ego. When we walk into a situation, like having a talk with our spouse, our egos have a tendency to fill in the blanks with all kinds of preconceptions, dreams, and beliefs. The more ego there is, the more it will control the circumstance and ultimately keep us from seeing things as they really are. As a result, it can be quite challenging for someone with strong convictions to look at the world from a different perspective, or to escape their intellectual cage. Lao Tzu therefore exhorts us to go back to the uncarved block, a more primal state. The uncarved block could be seen as a person whose perspective on the world is clear, because he is free from many types of intellectual baggage. In a Dutch book about Taoist philosophy, Dr. Wu Wei, a philosopher and sinologist from the Netherlands, describes her understanding of Wu Wei by highlighting the concept of emptiness or openness. I will quote her when I say that the core of Wu Wei practice is as follows. And so the whole practitioner is able to, from the clarity of his egoless center, observe all relevant forces in a certain situation in their being, undistorted, so he can respond to them flawlessly. End quote. When we consider Wu Wei in this light, we see that it's far more daring than simply letting go and letting nature take its course, which requires a great deal of courage. It takes courage to discard our normative frameworks, flush our presumptions down the toilet, and let go of what we've learned. Or how Lao Tzu put it, and I quote, "Renounce knowledge and your problems will end." What is the difference between yes and no? What is the difference between good and evil? Must you fear what others fear? Nonsense, look how far you have missed the mark. End quote. Zhuangzi recounts an incident involving Confucius and Yan Hui, one of his students. After learning of the kingdom of Wei's numerous issues and despotic ruler, Yan Hui became interested in visiting it. He therefore intended to instruct the king of Wei and guide the country in the proper path by applying his expertise and wisdom. Confucius convinced Yan Hui against it, arguing that his schemes were too self-serving and unrealistic. After all, nobody, much less a self-absorbed despot, is waiting to teach you how to run your firm by some random know-it-all. Confucius did, however, present a substitute that he termed the fasting of the heart. Confucius defined the fasting of the heart as a type of meditation that results in letting go of our assumptions and creating space for receiving. Yan Hui might learn about Wei and its monarch, their traditions and beliefs, the events as they unfold, and ultimately become much more capable of offering assistance if he approached the situation with an open and receptive mindset. This interpretation of Wu Wei allows us to let go of our ego and act in harmony with the circumstances as they are, without being constrained by our narrow, predetermined notions. We let things happen and respond appropriately, or, in the words of Lao Tzu, we become again like uncarved blocks. Chong stated, and I quote, "No matter if it's about politics, governance, diplomacy, or any other activity, what Zhuangzi calls Wu Wei is this ultimate receptive and responsive way of action, from a crystal clear openness in yourself, one with the breathing of the cosmos." Thank you for watching.